your host, Sean Aaron, and welcome to Dem Bois Inc. Podcast. This show is a platform where trans men of color voices can be amplified as we share our transitional stories and many other issues that are relatable to trans men of color in our existence. This show is not only to amplify our voices, but to raise awareness and conversation around our lived experiences.
Hey, this is Sean Aaron. I'm the founder and executive director of Dem Bois Inc. I am also the host of Dem Bois Podcast. As you may know, Dem Bois provides financial assistance to trans men of color in order for them to obtain gender-affirming surgery. We have great news. We're currently looking for volunteers to help support our programs. Our programs include our gender-affirming surgery grant program and also our personal care package program. We personally curate packages filled with personal hygiene items. Just to name a few, things like tissue, soap, towels, toothpaste, and toothbrushes. We mail them out to trans men of color across the country who may be in need of help caring for their personal hygiene needs. We are looking for volunteers to help raise funds to support our programs. Also, we're looking for someone locally to the Bay Area to help us put all of the care packages together. If our mission is something that resonates with you and you would like to help support our work, just let us know. You can send an email to hello@dembois.org. That is HELLO@DEMBOIS.org. And we will get back to you with further details. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the next episode. So with this episode, I would like to talk about three different things. So first thing is reaching back. Second thing is philanthropy. And the third thing is how I started Dem Bois Inc. So I've gotten a lot of questions from folks via DM or like in person asking me like, hey, how did you start Dem Bois or what gave you the idea to start Dem Bois, for folks that don't know my transition story. And so I think that a lot of the things that happened in my life leading up to this point have shaped and made me into the person who I am today. So a lot of the life experiences, sometimes we don't realize how great they are until, or like we don't realize the actualization of them until the end, or until when things unfold. And then we're like, oh, I remember this moment, like the inception of this idea or this thought or this process. So I'm the sum of many parts, right? So I have so many different parts, from things that happened when I was a youth up until, adolescence, being a teenager, young adulthood, into now just being 41 and being all the way grown, right? So how I started Dem Bois. So first, I'll just like to go back so sometimes I like guess time frames. I'm not always accurate. It's just my recollection and how I remember things. So sometimes I'm not always clear with like the certain age I was or like the year or whatever. But from my experience and my memory, I know that it happened. I'm just sometimes not clear about when exactly it happened. So talking about philanthropy, I remember back when I was younger, I believe I was in junior high school. So we had to do a report about philanthropy. So at this time, like, I knew what the word philanthropy was. I knew how to spell it. I knew how to say it, but I didn't really understand like what it really was. When I think of philanthropy, I always think of like rich people coming in, swooping in, almost like people say the white savior coming in and throwing that money at a problem and trying to fix a problem. That's what I always thought of philanthropy, right? And I always, as a kid, I always thought that philanthropy was not something that people of color did. I always felt like, less access and we aren't given as much. But then I realized that philanthropy doesn't have to be something that's in the millions. It doesn't have to be something that a wealthy person does. I feel like everybody in their own everyday life has a responsibility as a human being to give back. And so I'm actually in a working group, and it's with fundraisers of color. And someone in the working group said that people of color been fundraising and been doing philanthropy as long as, anyone can remember, right? So we talking about like Giving money in church, like that's philanthropy, or like giving back, or like that's fundraising. So I remember writing a report back in junior high school. And so I had to look up the definition of philanthropy, right? So in episode 9, when I talked about finding courage, I gave a whole list of definitions of courage, right? And so definitions, or like finding meanings to words, has always been my way to kind of like get a better understanding of what a word means and how I want to apply it and what I'm talking about or whatever. So right now, just as the definition from Webster, philanthropy is the desire to promote the welfare of others, expressed especially by the generous donation of money to a good cause. Now, hold that generous word. So when I was in junior high, I did a report on philanthropy. And so I looked up, I don't know why, but the first person I looked up at that time was Russell Simmons. You know, Russell Simmons started Def Jam and all of these things, all the business ventures that Russell Simmons was a part of, minus some of the things negative recently that we may have heard of him. But I'm talking about back when I was in junior high school. So I wrote a report on philanthropy and about Russell Simmons. And I always, just like I said before, like I always thought that it was something that rich people did. Only rich people give back. I'm poor. I'm low income. I don't have money to give back. And so after doing this report on Russell Simmons, I realized in my mind, I always was like, oh, I want to be a philanthropist when I grow up. That's what's always like, I want to give back. I want to do this in large amounts. I want to, but I realized as I got older that I took on the title of philanthropist. So if somebody asked me, even today, I'd be like, yeah, I'm a philanthropist. How are you a philanthropist? You don't have millions of dollars to give away. I'm sorry. I could be a philanthropist is to promote the welfare of others. So remember I said, hold on to that word generous. Generous to me means anything that you can afford to give in that moment. So if you have $100 and you can afford to give someone else 25 of those dollars out of that 100, that's generous because that's how much you can afford at that time. It's better than nothing. And so I'm always like, I'm a philanthropist. And so throughout the course of my life, in episode 3, I talked about surviving homelessness. So in that moment in my life, I didn't have much resources. But if I had anything that I could give and you needed it, I would give it to you, even in those moments. Because I remember in that episode, I talked about how the gas station attendant gave me gas in my car when I only put a couple of dollars and he filled the gas tank up. In my mind, that's him expressing philanthropy or showing philanthropy in that way. So I've always like, okay, I'm a philanthropist. So throughout my life, I've done things that I've done things for people. So I might be in the grocery store, and this has happened, true story. I'm in the grocery store. I'm behind a family, a single mother. I don't know if she's single mother or not, but it's a woman, kids. She got a cart full of groceries. She load up the conveyor belt. I know, nowadays you see this on Instagram or whatever. People like to showcase what they do for others. Me, that's not how I roll personally. I feel like as long as it's coming from the heart, I don't need to tell anybody else or show anybody else what I do. That's between me and the person that I gifted something to. So I've been in a grocery store. Okay, single person in front of me. I got 2 items. I don't know what the items are. I'm just like bread and milk. All right, I got bread and milk. And so the lady rings up her groceries. Okay, groceries is $300 some dollars. Okay, cool. In my mind, I'm like, you know what? I feel it in my bones. I feel this spirit. I'm going to pay for this lady groceries. So I'll be like, excuse me. Do you mind if I pay for your groceries? Wait, what? People have said like, wait, what you mean? Oh, I don't want anything in return. Do you mind? I just feel, I feel something telling me to pay for your groceries. And so I've done things like that, or I fill up people's gas tanks, or like going across the bridge, I might give $100 and I'm like, everybody behind me that feels with this that can fit into this $100, I'm paying for their bridge toll, or I'm buying somebody a meal, or hey, I'm pulling up into the McDonald's drive-thru. I'm gonna pay for my food in the 3 cars behind me, or something like that. Like, I feel like, to me, that's like what philanthropy means. It doesn't have to be generous. When I mean, like, this word, we think of generous, like the dictionary of thinking of wealthy people giving money to feed the homeless, or, like, yes, that's nice. And I feel like if the more access that you have, the more resources that you have, the more you should give back. But I think it's an obligation for us as human beings to hold other human beings when in need. So I've gone my whole life. So that's just like a little piece of it, right? So I hold that philanthropy in my mind. And I never really understood how it would play out in this full capacity. But I knew that I took that title, and that's what I was going to do. Even in small amounts, I made a vow to myself that I would do that throughout my life in whatever capacity that is at the moment, right? Another thing is like about reaching back. So when I graduated from high school, I was always the kind of kid that was like, I want to be a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut, and an accountant in my lifetime. Like, I always had like this big dream of being everything all at one time. So when I graduated from high school, when I went to college, my major was biology. And so my goal was to be an obstetrician. I wanted to be an obstetrician and gynecology. And for folks that don't know, obstetrician is a doctor that's concentrated and focused on pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum period after someone gives birth. And so that was my goal, right? I went to college. Okay, my major is biology. This is what I want to be. But, life happened, and I was homeless. And so I dropped out of school. And I talked about this in episode 3, about not feeling comfortable, not feeling clean. And I just dropped out. And so that was my moment. I was like, okay, well, that's not for me in my life. So what else I want to do? So it took me. So I was homeless for the 2.5 years. So I didn't even think about what I wanted to be. Like, that was just the farthest from my mind. The only thing I thought about was survival. So my body kicked into survival mode. My nervous system was in survival mode. And that was just it. I didn't think about anything else. But then when I got into the job that I'm in now, I started to shift and change about little other things. So let me go back a little bit. So when I was younger, before saying I wanted to get in to be obstetrician, because remember I said I wanted to do 5 different careers at once, I used to always tell my mom I want to be, so this may be triggering to some folks, but this is just my truth, right? So I used to always tell my mom I want to be a police officer. That was always my thing. And she would always say, that's dangerous, or women shouldn't be police officers and all of that. So I kind of like got away from that, right? So, but then when I got into the job that I'm in now, I was like, you know what? I want to revisit that. And so I know it's problematic, right? The justice system in this country is problematic. But I always had the idea that I wanted to give back into my community in a way that wasn't being fulfilled in a way. So I always was like, I want to be a part of my community, because I always hated when people, and I'm gonna say non-people of color, would come into my hood from neighborhoods that hadn't experienced the problems that was in my neighborhood, and they come and trying to police us, have no idea how we communicate, have no idea how we interact with one another, how we move, how we live. And so then we get problems in policing, right? And my thought was not only just giving back to my own community from where I was from, but I had a bigger picture, right? I was like, I want to be a police officer, but I want to be a police chief, or I want to be a commissioner, or something higher than just that, because I wanted to implement trainings on gender, implement trainings on how to deal with folks with mental illnesses, and like all these different things that a lot of departments aren't doing, or some try to do. And well, we know based on the news, we know about what's going on in this country and with race and policing, and it's just a mess, right? But in my mind, it was always something that I wanted to do in a different way. So for 13 years, 13 long years, right? So I still was holding on to this philanthropy, but still not knowing exactly which ways my life would go. Like, where was my life going? I had no idea, right? And so I know I wanted to do this. So I dedicated my life. So I dedicated 13 years of my life to becoming a police officer. So for folks who don't know, when you apply for law enforcement, the time from putting in your application for employment up into background checks, physicals, polygraph, academy, it's anywhere from 6 to 9 months to completion. So, I'm not including police academy. I'm just including, it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months, 3 to 9 months, whatever, to just get hired. And then where they say you're hired, because you got to go through all these processes and you're supposed to pass every step in order to get to the end. So I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. So they always say, live your life unsullied. So that means, what it should mean, I feel like, if you're doing things the right way, is if you live in your life with integrity, right? You're not doing anything, your credit is right, you live in your life, you're not doing things that you should not be doing, or you're not setting an example. So I always wanted to set an example anyway, right? Because I have a child. So I always was like, certain things I just don't do, I don't partake in, because I wanted to set an example for my son and for my family. So a lot of things that just fit that way, right? So I went from 2002 all the way to 2015, applying, getting denied. And so closer to the end of the 13 years where I just gave it up. So probably I'm going to say year 11, I met this one officer. He was doing my background check. I won't say which city. Not that I'm trying to keep it, but I just feel like it's not important to discuss this piece of my story. But so a department prior to that, I had went all the way to the end of the phase. So usually like the polygraph, background, that's the last phase before they say, hey, okay, you hired. And so I got a letter in the mail. They say pretty much, and pretty much long story, they like, we don't want you. No, we're not hiring you. And so I was kind of defeated at this point. And so this was like, I had 3 applications that was in the process. I was waiting to hear back from. And so this was one of the other ones after that one. And so I got to the background investigator. And so this is after I transitioned, right? So I first began applying back in 2002. I hadn't transitioned until 2013. So before that, so now we're talking about 2013, 2014, after transitioning, I go to this one department and I went to meet him face to face. He said, yeah, I'm in charge of your background check. He say, he said, you a straightforward guy. He said, everything on paper about you looks great. You personable, you a good person. I don't understand why the last department didn't hire you. He said, so I went looking, I went asking. And they told him that he shouldn't have told me this, but maybe he thought that he was doing me a favor. I don't know. But he was just like, oh, the investigator from the last department told me that they didn't hire you because you was trans. And I say, what? Like, that's unbelievable, right? He said, because they don't know how to handle a trans officer in their department. They're not set up that way. So they denied you because of that. And he admitted to me that he didn't want to take my background package because he felt that because of his own biases, that he would not judge me fairly. So fast forward, I didn't get hired there either. And so by this time, I've been doing this for 13 years. So by this time, so I even had went back to college. So my life was okay now. It was different from when I was homeless. And so I was able to go to school. And so I was like, if I'm going to do this job, I want to be the best person that I can be at this job. So I went and I got a degree in English. I'm like, I want to be able to write. I was all these different things. I got 2 degrees in administration of justice and law enforcement. I was like, I want to be the best person that I can be. I don't just want to say I want to do this job. I want to show that I have education and that I have a background to do this and that I mean what I want to do. Like I'm serious, right? So they didn't hire me. So I went into this, deep, deep depression because I was like, I don't know what it is that's meant for my life then. I've been working on this for so long that what else? I don't have a plan B. I'm like, I don't know what else to do. Hey, this is Sean Aaron, the host of Dem Bois Podcast. Are you enjoying the podcast so far? Great. I'm glad that you are. Would you consider donating today to help support the continuation of this podcast? As you know, this podcast aims to serve as a platform to highlight and amplify the voices of trans men of color and share our transition stories. The podcast not only aims to amplify trans men of color voices, but it also raises awareness around our lived experiences. You would like to donate? Where can you donate? Great. I'm glad that you asked. Link in our description will take you directly to Network for Good, whom we've partnered with in order to collect donations for the podcast. Or you can visit our website. On the website, click the donate button, and from there, you are able to donate directly to the podcast. All donations are tax deductible. What does the donations go to? Oh, I'm glad that you asked. Your donation will help to support our production costs. We are working with Jasmine from Pink Lady Productions that brings you this awesome content. And also, we pay our guests an honorarium. Pay our guests an honorarium? Yes, we do. Why? Because as trans men of color, we would like to support and uplift each other and honor the time that's given out to come here and share their stories. So if you love this podcast, share and donate. See you on the next episode. Take care. So all of these things, all of these little pieces that kind of like isolated in my mind, right? And it didn't quite come together yet until much later. So graduating from college, because my degree was administration of justice, I actually graduated 5 different degrees. And so I got to pick which section I wanted to sit in. I'm like, okay, I want to be done first. So I'm going to sit with the administration of justice section because they're going to call the A's first. All right. So I'm going to be up at the front. So I was sitting in the front, and one of the speeches from another graduate was about reaching back. And so I'm listening to the talk about, yeah, you getting your degrees, you going off into your fields, or you transferring, or you going to get your master's or your PhD or whatever you're going to do after this. Don't forget to reach back. That was the gist of the speech, right? Don't forget to. And so in my mind, I was like, reaching back. What does that even mean? Right? I was like, I thought about it. I'm like, oh, I know how I'm going to reach back. I'm going to get back to my community. In this other capacity I was thinking of in law enforcement, that's how I'm going to get back to my community. I want to shake some shit up in a department. That's what I want to do. And I realized, going back to that, I realized that that's why they didn't hire me, because they're not ready to change. They see something in me that I wasn't quite ready to see for myself. But we talking about, I'm not going to be complacent. I'm not going to allow things to happen in my presence. And that's not something that they wanted. And so that's why my answers kept being no, 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 no. And so I was like reaching back. So I took that a little bit, put that in the pile with philanthropy. And okay, like reaching back means when you get to where you going and you establish, don't forget about the other folks that's behind you. All right, I'm going to put all that together. Okay, all right, whatever. I'm still going on about my life. But after I got that last no from the last department that I ever applied to, so it wasn't just that no. So it was that no. But then I got into a place where I was just blank, but I didn't know what else I wanted to do. I do not believe in doing something if your heart is not in it. If your heart is not in it, don't do it. It's just that. if your heart, I don't care what it is, you can want to be a teacher. If your heart is not into teaching, if your heart is not there and you don't have pure, sincere care for students, don't be a teacher. You know, if even like with being in law enforcement, if you're a racist or if you don't have a true desire to help communities or to do the right thing, don't do it. You know, like anything, any career, any field. I feel like if you want to be an accountant, if you're not going to be the best accountant that you can be and your heart isn't in it, don't do it. Like I feel wholeheartedly about putting your heart into something that you do. So after being told no, I went into a really, really deep depression because then all of my demons start coming up, right? My demons from being verbally abused at a younger age. And so I was thinking things of like, they telling me no, that means I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I started to doubt myself. I was triggered by some of the things that were said to me. I'm like, you know, I also was saddened. I'm like, I set my life aside. I could have been doing something else maybe instead of doing that. And so I just was depressed. I just really was. I didn't know what else to do. I'm like, I'm too old for this. I'm like, you know, I'm in my 30s now. What am I going to do? Right. So remember, philanthropy is still hanging in there. I'm thinking about reaching back. So I just was, you know, thinking. So I ended up going on a leadership retreat. And within that retreat, I kind of found myself. And I realized, I know how I'm going to get back. I'm going to go to law school. That wasn't it either. I was like, that wasn't it. So that was my idea, right? So I started applying for other schools, and then I realized, that's not really what I want to do. So I had to sit with myself. I need the universe to tell me what it is that's meant for me to do. So I thought about it. And I remember I was driving home one day and I saw a bulletin board, and just random bulletin board. And it said, you're waiting for something to happen that's meant for you to do. Interesting. So I put that in the bank, right? I put that in the back in my mind. So I put that with reaching back. I put that in there with philanthropy. And I'm like, okay. So it's like all these thoughts and processes that's manifesting in my head that I had no idea yet. I didn't know. So I didn't do anything for a while. And I was unhappy. I was unhappy at my day job because I'm like, okay, now I'm stuck here. I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, I was like, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. It was like all these knots. I kept giving myself all this bad feedback, and it wasn't helping me. Right. So then I had to really sit back and say, universe, what is it that you want me to do? And so even prior to like not applying for departments anymore, I've been really fortunate because like a lot of times, like a lot of things are revealed to me in dreams. I think this is like a gift, really. A lot of things that has been manifested in my life, I've first saw it in a dream. And so I would have these really, really vivid nightmares, really. And the universe was telling me, oh, if you want this, I give it to you. But if you get it, this is going to happen to you. So I kept having nightmares of like being killed, like in a line of duty type thing. And the message in my dream was, I'll give it to you, but this will be how it ends. And so I wasn't okay with that. I was like, that's not how I want my life to go. So I think that it's the time that maybe I'll let this go completely and just stop thinking about it. And so then there was one more application that I had that was ready. So they called me up, hey, come take a physical. So it was a lot of things you got to do in a physical. You got to jump a 6-foot wall. You got to pull a dummy, 150-pound dummy or whatever you got to do. They want you to run. They want you to jump. This is all this stuff that they want you to do. And so I remember I was running around. So you had to run like 2 laps around a track. So I was running around this track or whatever. So at this point, I'm just going with the flow. My heart is not really in it anymore because I've been told no so many times that I'm starting to feel some kind of way about myself. But I was like, they call. So I guess I'll go over here and do this, right? So I'm running around the track. And on this track, so this is actually an academy where we were doing this physical test. So this is legit where cadets go through and they actually train here. So I'm running around the track. I'm kind of absent-minded. I'm there, but I'm not there. And so I'm running and they have this bulletin up on the track. And I remember looking at the words. I mean, I've taken physicals here many a times before, right? But I just never really paid attention to it. I don't know if it was because I was so ready and my drive was there, or like my adrenaline was running, that I never really paid attention to my surroundings. I just was like, I want to pass this test and that's it. But I was, starting to have like an out of body experience at this point, and I was just going with the flow. And I remember running around the track, and then my eyes averted up to this little bulletin board that was up, kind of like it's like a little hill, but it's like a big bulletin board. And the words on the board was so clear to me that they literally came off the board and slapped me in the face. But the verbatim on the board said, "It is us versus them." And as I rounded the track and I let those words sink in, and I was like, us versus them? Wait a minute. Like, that's not what policing is supposed to be about. What the fuck am I doing here? I said, who is the us? Wait a minute. And in some circumstances, I'm the them. I'm a black man. I'm the them most of the time. Wait a minute. And it was in that moment that my mind kind of like snapped out of it. And I was like, yo, Sean, this is not your life purpose. What the fuck are you doing? Do you know I didn't finish that test? I was done. I mean, well, mentally, I didn't finish it. I physically finished it, but mentally, I was checked out. And that was when I was like leaning into universe. What is it? What is my purpose? What is my life purpose on this earth? What am I supposed to do? There is something, if I want all these things that I wanted to do, right? You think about being an obstetrician or like being, these are just jobs that serve people. I'm like, well, what is it? Like, what is it for me to do? So I took a moment. I didn't do anything. And I just sat with all of that. And I said, well, now it's quite clear that this is not for me. This is not what's for my life, manifested for my life, or what. So what is? And so I let time pass by. And so after I went to this leadership retreat, my mind was kind of open to becoming a leader in my community. So I remember one day I was sitting, I hadn't been on like social media. Social media, even now, it's not really my thing. I'm not really a social media person. I try not to be, really. One, because I get sucked into it, but I'm not. I just, it's for me, and sometimes it's not. Right? I use social media when I'm sitting on the toilet taking a shit. That's what I use social media for, right? To kill time. But I remember I was scrolling on social media. So this is after I transitioned. So this was this was 2000, probably end of 14, beginning of 15. And I was scrolling through my Instagram feed. Some people may know this story. And I saw a post from a trans man of color. And he took a picture with his chest pre-op. And under the post, it said that he might as well get used to his body with breasts, because he would never be able to afford gender affirming surgery. And that stuck with me. That bothered me, actually. And, I can't talk about that without saying how through my transition, just a little bit of transparency of how blessed I was with my job. And not everyone has that opportunity. And when I wanted to transition and I wanted to have top surgery, There was someone that I work with, and I call him my big brother. And he had top surgery. And I was so fascinated by this. I was like, oh my God, how did that happen? How did you even afford it? What did you do? And all of these things. And he was like, the job will pay for it. I was like, what? Wait a minute. What you mean? So I was just so fixated on what he said that I did all my research and found that, yes, the job does pay for it, but for a certain amount. But I also was privileged in the way that I had access to pay for my surgery. And I was, so my surgery was supposed to be, I can't remember exactly, but I think it was like $16,000 I had to pay. And I had access at that time to the funds. And I remember I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this money and I'm going to pay for my surgery. And I ended up filing a petition to have my surgery, the cost waived. And I remember going into the medical secretary's office and telling them I wanted to file a petition because my therapist told me that my job pays for it. And because they declared it medically necessary, I shouldn't have to pay anything. So I remember going into the medical secretary's office and I told the lady there, I was like, I want to file a petition. She laughed at me. She was like, I doubt that'll work. I'm like, wow, damn. Thank you for your positivity. But she was like, I doubt that'll work. That'll never work. And so she said, but you could do it anyway. She was like, I'd love to know. She was just negative. She was like, I would love to know how that go. Well, the universe had another idea, right? God, universe, whatever you particularly believe in, right? And so I filled out this petition. I was just saying that, hey, my doctor deemed this medically necessary, and I feel like I'm being not taken seriously, and I feel like this should be paid for, period. That was just it. And I feel like, that's unfair and blah, 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 right? So I sent the letter off. And I wish I would have went back to talk to this lady too, because I was shitting bricks at this time, but not just shitting bricks because I didn't have the money, but I was like, oh, I could keep this money. But like a week before my surgery, I got a letter in the mail saying, hey, your request has been approved. You only have to pay $250. And I was like, what? And so to go back to see that Instagram post of somebody not having the ability to feel that same joy that I feel and so many other trans men of color, how we feel when we finally get our surgery, our gender affirming surgery, whatever surgery that it is that you choose to have. I was like, that's not right. Like everybody should have this feeling. Everybody should have access regardless of financial means, right? Just because you can't afford it, I feel like as a human being, we should have the right to be healthy. We should have the access to get medical attention and to get the things that we need. That should be a human right. And that's when, and my mind shifted. And I was like, there has to be something that's out there to help folks pay for surgery. So I did some Google searching. I went on YouTube. I Google searched and I found some organizations that did that provided that. But then I looked at a lot of their awardees and hardly any of them were people of color. And so then I sat down and I'm thinking and I put all these pieces together. I'm like, philanthropy, reaching back, all of these things. Something is not going to be there because you need to do it. And I said, I would like to start an organization that provides financial assistance to trans men of color in order for them to obtain gender affirming surgery. And I said it over and over. And my wife at the time, her name is Beautiful. I went to her and I was like, I think I want to do this, but I don't know how to do it. and I don't know what to do. I don't even know if this exists. Like, can I do it? And she was just so supportive and was like, I think you should. That's a great idea. Then Dem Bois Inc. was formed. And it has become my work about and reaching back, right? And I feel obligated to folks who maybe you don't have the means, or you don't have the financial access or the resources to pay for surgery, but that doesn't mean that you don't deserve it. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't have it. And so fast forward, and it was 2016 at this time. And so Dem Bois was started. And I went through the whole process, right? You go through the whole process. You got the 501c3 process, which took 2 years. And it's a lot of writing, a lot of going back and forth with the IRS. And so, but I knew that this was a way for me to, one, to fulfill that need of philanthropy. And two, is a way to reach back and to bring all the folks up with me who don't have the financial means to obtain gender affirming surgery. And so when I think about reaching back, I think that it's not just the responsibility of me, but I think it's the responsibility of all of us, right? And especially for those who may be listening who've already had gender affirming surgery. I feel like that is important, and it's almost an obligation. I talked about this in episode 10 with Andy, and how Andy had a GoFundMe, which he still does. So if you would like to donate to Andy's GoFundMe to help with taking care of his financial needs as he recovers from top surgery. But I think, and I think about the organization, and it's my life work to provide for folks who don't have access. It's really, I feel like all the pieces of my life, right? All of the pieces, I didn't understand it at first. I was chasing things that wasn't for me. I was moving in ways that wasn't aligned with my purpose. And until the universe was like, hey, this is something that is meant for you to do. It's not going to be here unless you're the one that created. And I think about with Lizzo a couple of weeks ago in one of her speeches, she said, all I wanted to see was somebody black like me and fat like me. And not in verbatim, but to me, that means, yeah, you wanted to see it, but you wasn't going to see it. I think she kind of touched on this. It was like, you're not going to see it because you're the one that's supposed to be there for other people to see. Right. So my advice for someone, I think, is just really, you're like, oh, maybe I don't know what I want to do. I don't want to start an organization, but I don't know what it is that I want to do. But I think it's important to kind of lean into what feels good, right? Go to the direction where your heart is, you feel the most passion in your heart. And my advice is also, I tell people this all the time when I come in contact with people, if your heart is not in it, don't do it, because it just won't turn out right. You want to do something wholeheartedly. I live my life whole. And when I do things, it's wholeheartedly. If I feel any bit of this is not going to work, or I'm not fully into it, I won't do it. I won't subject myself to doing something that I'm not fully vested in. Right. So, I hope that this answered the question for folks who've asked me on different occasions of like, hey, how did you start Dem Bois? Or like, why did you start Dem Bois? And Dem Bois, right? It's not just this podcast. This podcast is a platform where trans men of color, our voices can be amplified, and we share our stories and our lived experiences. But we also have other things too within Dem Bois, right? So it's the gender affirming surgery grants, and we also have care packages that we provide folks who need help with personal hygiene needs. So I think it's like all of these things of like fulfilling the desire and my need and where my heart is. So I hope that this answered the question in a way where folks asking me of like, how did I start the organization? Where did I get my passion from? And I think like all the parts, all the things that I've been through, all the things that I had to work towards to get here right now So remember, if you have any questions that you would like to hear me answer or any other guests of the show, please send an email to hello@dembois.org. That's HELLO @dembois.org. And take care. Till next time.
Thank you for listening to today's show. Once again, I'm your host. My name is Sean Aaron. Be sure to be sure to share this show out with folks in your networks. If you would like to connect with us, be sure to follow us on Instagram or Facebook. You can also visit our website at dembois.org. That's DEMBOIS.org. If you think you will make a great guest on this show, or maybe you have a question for myself or a future guest that you would like to hear answered on the show, please send an email to hello@dembois.org. That's HELLO @dembois.org. Until next time, take care.